Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I turned it off. I just wanted to make sure. Well, yeah, thank you for taking time out of your evening to come to this here presentation. What I wanted to do is to talk to you about net fly fishing. It's something that's near and dear to my heart. Uh, in that, I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what these things called midges are. I had absolutely no idea of what midges are. I thought they were just smaller versions of well-known patterns. And then 35 years ago, I had the great opportunity of meeting my wife who lived in Durango. And Durango is a short distance.
Thanks. There, how about that?
It was a short distance from the furthest San Juan River. And so I would make that curve to drop off in Durango and keep going at speed and just throw it out the door and then head back to the San Juan. And that was a very fortuitous thing for me to go down there and fish because I went down there and I thought, well, I've been fishing for quite a while. I bet you I can catch a fish. And I couldn't. I absolutely couldn't catch a fish. And as I studied the fishers down there, I found out that these fish were consuming midges. And so I said, well, what are midges? This is okay about midges and fishing midges. And this is some of the information that I've learned I like to share with you. I like to share with you everything that I studied about midges, which actually allowed me to write my first book called Modern Midges. We able to collect patterns from all over the world. I worked for 12 years for Fly Fisherman magazine as an illustrator. Fly and then they asked me to write, and that's where they kind of got me because I'm not understanding English at all, and I really would have difficulty with English, with math, with all those things that uh, people are supposed to be good at. I was not good at. What I was good at was writing and art, so that's what I concentrated on. So I'm going to start this journey here of what I've learned about mid-sci. And what I'm trying to do is not necessarily the gospel. It's pretty close to the gospel, at least according to the things that other but I have spent quite a bit of time studying this issue that I've learned. So for Trout, I would read all of his I'll let you look at that. You can see that there is Dick Trout. I think the thing that's interesting to note is that as of now, there's probably 24,000 species of midges in North America. At the time I wrote the book, there was about 20. And so he said that the thing that he told me is especially the midges in the still waters and lakes are very, very important food source. Maybe consisting of 75% of the food value that trout take in. So they become very, very important to the trout fishermen. And when I first started fishing midges, it was at Delaney Buttes um, you know, 40, 50 years ago. And I find these shucks on the water and I'd collect them and I didn't know what the heck they were. So then I found out that they were midges and I started fishing Gary Borger's bow tie buzzard and did very well. And so that started my journey into learning all that I could about midges. I just wanted to show you that this is Poudre River, and I took a picture of this at the time to look and see what's going on. And here all these midges were happening, and I think that's a good thing to do is to look around when you get down to the water you're going to fish because again midges are a very important food source for trout. Not all year long, but a good portion of the time. I wanted to talk about the midge life cycle because I think it's really important to the fly fishermen. Uh, They have four stages in the midge life cycle. First stage, the egg is not important to the trout because they can't see it. It's so microscopic. It's really small. But what I think the midge starts to come in its own is that the life cycle is it starts from an egg to a larva, which is a worm-like looking um, insect, with a pupa to the adult. This is a throat sample that Brian sent me of a trout that he had caught on a lake, and he took a throat sample. And I could see all the stages of the midge in the little sampling there, and it just amazed me. So I went whenever I could. The larva, really important stage. It's one of the first stages I think is really important to the fly fisherman. And a lot of times when you look at this stage, it looks like a little worm. It really does. And I think a lot of people were equating the larva stage of the midge to a thing they call an annelid. And an annelid is not it's a worm. It's not a midge, but the larva looks like a worm. So I think a lot of people were equating that uh, with an annelid. And also, a lot of these larvae live in the bottom of the lakes, and there's very low oxygen, so they store oxygen in the form of hemoglobin, which turns them red. So a lot of times you'll see these red uh, midge larvae, and I think that's really important because in the morning, especially in the morning, fish are really have to take a larva more than any other time of the day. Um, and you can see how many are available to the trout. It's just unbelievable how many midges that are available to the trout at any time. And so I think that's really an important stage for you to be mindful of when you're fishing. And there's some examples of some samples. I took a photograph of the midge, and you can, they come in all different colors, but the ones that I find the most are the red, are kind of a one-colored olive, and oftentimes are really the colors that I like to use. And I think more so I fish the red color the most. Mm, mhm. There, I might have you. I wanted to show you some of the patterns that represent the larva, and this is just the beginning. What's so much fun about this genre of insects is that you can tell all kinds of different colors. And one thing I got from folks reading my first book and said, "Well, you didn't tell us what kind of species of midge that was and where you fish it." And I said, "Oh, I don't understand the English." And then I wanted to show you some of the fish pictures we took. This is a nice little rainbow we released on Delaney Buttes. Next stage is probably one of my favorite stages of fishing. That's the pupa. I think that it's important as a trout because number one, especially in the stream, there's so many thousands of pupa in the water that oftentimes as a fish that mostly feed, trout are in shallow water, they're mostly feeding. But in a river, especially, a lot of times these trout, and this I witnessed on the San Juan River, is that they could just stay in position, open their mouth, and the stream flow's coming down, and all these pupa are coming down, and they're just ingesting thousands of midge pupa, both in the lakes and in the rivers. And so I really find that I concentrate a lot of my fishing and my time towards um, replicating the midge pupa. And these are some examples of the flies that are collected. What was really cool about this book is that since I worked for Fly Fisherman Magazine, I got to know a lot of people. And I asked fly fishers from around the world to submit patterns. And so that was very interesting to get some of those patterns. I This is my pattern that I came up with and what I tied in the back room. Um, and had a lot of luck with that pattern. Okay, Mitch, Mitch Cooper, if you notice the picture, has a real shiny body. And what happens when a Mitch Cooper starts in surface to hatch, it fills its body with a glassy substance, and what helps it to reach the surface of the water. And if you notice, you can see the gill filaments on the front of the breathing structure of the trout. I think those are two keys that you might consider when you're tying your flies, especially to have that shiny. And then if you notice segmentation of the midge pupa, they're not real close together. So when you're tying your flies, don't necessarily put your rigging real close together. Give it some space, and they'll look more like the actual insect. Some patterns I've seen that they put a lot of rigging in, and you don't necessarily have to do that, but you can. I think there's a lot of ways of tying the fly, but that's the observations that I made. This is an example of a pupa that a friend of mine, Brian Yamauchi, who's from Hawaii and came and lived here in Colorado, and he was just absolutely the most fantastic chironomid midge fisherman. And this is a pattern that he came up with, and I took him up to Delaney Beach, and I thought, oh, I'm going to show this young whippersnapper her. And I went there, and he caught probably 21 fish using this pattern. It's just phenomenal. And then he used latex to make the body. And he worked in the medical field, so he used to get these latex gloves and cut them up into strips and make the flats. This is some. I'm going to have some shameful pictures of me, the fish I catch, because my wife says, "I don't think you caught a fish, or you say you caught all these fish, and are you catching the same fish over and again?" So I've taken some pictures to show, and this is up in Wyoming, fishing the shoreline with a spark indicator and putting a chronometer about this far down in the water. They were cruising the shoreline. The adult, um, the adult can be at times an important stage, but it's probably one of the lesser stages that I fish. Oftentimes, when these adults hatch out. They're much smaller than the pupa or the larva. And sometimes they're hard to see. And I don't always see fish taking them, but when I do see the fish uh, taking them, I'll certainly put on a dry adult fly to see if I can catch them. But I'm generally concentrating mostly fishing at pupa, then next to the larva. And these are some examples of the patterns that can represent that. And there's the adult. It looks like a mosquito. And it doesn't. It's more biting. I don't see why trout like to eat this because I tried eating some of these, and they weren't very good. But as my brothers in the back could say, you put a little bit of soy sauce on them, and then they'll taste all right. This is a real good friend of mine who's a bit of a program that we have where we work with disabled and able-bodied vets in Fort Collins hygiene near Longmont. And I took him down to the San Juan, and he did life cycle, but this is the emerger stage. The emerger stage, the cluster stage, it flies like the Griffith gnat. This little cluster midge in the middle there, this one there, and this little midge emerger. I think are important patterns to tie. So tie a lot of emergent style patterns and put foam or CDC in the wing. Oftentimes will be very effective. Yes, sir. Oh, yes, yes. It's owned by a fly tire down at Durango's in Durango. Yeah. And so, again, talking about the emerger, well, sometimes with that shiny effect as it's coming up uh, to hatch, a lot of times the midge people will come up, attach itself to the underside of the surface, arch its body up, and will attach its anal. I'm sorry, since I use those words. Will attach its anal portion to the surface, arch itself, and then work itself out. And if you could come up with a pattern that's U-shaped, you know, because of the reflection on the surface, on the side of the surface, you might come up with a pattern that might be very effective. But these are some more major markers that I fish. Um, this one on top is the very first midge emerger that I fished on the Green River, and I was that's how I could see it in the water, and I was watching it. And just watching for a fish to come up. Meanwhile, my rod was going like this, but I was concentrating on that thing that I thought it was my fly, and it wasn't. And the fish had come up and taken the one, but I was so concentrated. I'm not that good at fishing. I can tie flies. And this is a friend of mine, Phil Iwani. I know some of you might know Phil, but I took him down to the San Juan and was teaching him how to midge fly fish. And he came up to me and says, "Well, how come you're catching all these fish, Rick?" I said, "Well, Phil, I'm a better fisherman than you are." And he says, "No, really, why are you catching fish?" I said, "This is the size flies you were using. We didn't have a size 18 flies. Now you got to go down to 22 or 24." And he started doing that, and he caught this fish. And so he was very happy about that. And he's if you fish with Phil, which I know you guys do, he's a phenomenal midge fly fisherman. Yes, we don't know. He's got so many fly bars. He's got 7,463 flies that he carries with him. He fishes with maybe two. The only flies he knows how to tie is a no mercy midge and his little extended body mayfly, which he catches tons of fish with. I don't know why he carries all this stuff. If you ever watch Phil, he walks like this because it's so heavy. But I don't know why he carries so much stuff. Oh, yeah. Well, you know, Cindy, you fish with him. You've seen. Yes, yes. Okay, another pattern that I sometimes fish is that when the midge is hatched, sometimes the wind will cluster them, the drift of these adult midges. And oftentimes it's cluster pattern like a Griffith's knot or a cluster type of midge. The fish will come up and take those. So sometimes it's a good idea to have, like a Griffith's net with you, maybe a little larger size. I think it has a cluster of midges. These are some examples. The one on the here was slide that was sent to me from Japan. And it was really interesting to see that pattern and that they do a lot of midge fishing in Japan. Of course, another little brown from the Big Botson River. Type of equipment to use. I like to use 8 to 10 foot fly rods, and lately, after fishing, uh, with a lot of my friends, we started doing some Euro fishing, which is really a lot of fun. It reminds me of the way that I used to fish when I was fishing corn and worms and salmon eggs like that, that I was quite stick. So that's what the Euro fishing reminds me a lot of. But I typically like to use a 9, 10 foot rod, 3 to 6 weight, 6 weight being on the heavier side. I tend to like to fish 3 and 4 weight rods for a lot of my midge fishing. I want to have a reel that is a good startup just in case sometimes these fish will take the fly and you don't want to break the tip and they'll take off. You want to make sure that you have a good startup on your drag system. So I think having a good reel is a must to have. Not to shade your eyes so that you can see into the water and to protect your head because sometimes I have an errant cast and I've caught myself, so it's good to have sunglasses, not force polarized sunglasses so that you could see into the water. I think that's really important to have because a lot of times, if you can sight fish or you can see the fish, it'll give you an idea of where they might be. I'm going to run through some of these knots. You can look at them. These are some of the knots that I've used throughout my midge fishing career. This is the non-slip. I like to use this one because it creates a static loop on the end, and the fly can move around like this. So sometimes that's a very helpful thing to have. A little brown caught on the big Thompson. Another one is a Duncan loop, and if some of you have ever fished this fly or this knot, well, I like to tie it sometimes, with some of my flies because it acts as a shock absorber. Sometimes I'm using a 6 and 7X tippet, and by having this Duncan loop will slide back and forth. You can open it up and when you set the hook, it'll slide down. So it acts as a shock absorber. So I'm oftentimes will, if I have the time and the fish will allow me, I'll try a Duncan loop, but most of the time it's not really fish because the fish are taking it. I don't want to waste the time trying to, especially as I'm getting older now, I'm having trouble, finding the different material. This is my rig setup that I typically use. I've been fishing this way for past 30 years. Fishing the San Juan River when I went down. They first told me that you should buy a big O strike indicator here, have a 9 foot 5X tippet, and then another 18 inches of 6X. and I was lucky to catch a fish. I couldn't detect a bait. So what I started to do is an experiment. This is what I came up with. So I have a 7.5 and 4x leader. Into that, 15, 18 inches of 5x tippet. Then onto that 12 to 10 inches of 6x, uh, which I tie on, um, which is right here. Then I caught the first fly, and I try and fish a 2 fly rig. And the way that I set and I call my first fly a point fly, whereas I think in a lot of the literature, the point fly is the dropper fly. But I just refer to the point fly as the very first fly. And what I like to do is I like to tie a clinch knot on the midge, and then kind of, and then slide it inside the eye. And then instead of putting a dropper or the bottom fly on, by trying to put it on the bend of the hook, I never do that. I always tie it through the eye, so that what I create is it's kind of like a T figuration like this. So what that does is that opens up that hook point to the fish. Because I believe that if you have it on the bend of the hook, there could be enough tension that a trout will come up, fill that monofilament, and reject your first fly. Yeah. Sure. So, uh, no, I'll talk about the weight here in just a second. And then what I'll do is I'll do another 10 to 12 inches uh, off the board fly. And my thinking is that in the television of a trout, that if you have, like they were saying, 16, 24 inches between flies, well, I figured that a fly would come through and the trout might see the first fly, maybe not. And then it goes out of its vision, and then here comes the last fly. Well, if you have them closer together, they're more likely to see both flies. And so that's why I only fish about 10 to 12 inches in a river um, with the midges. In a lake, I might go 18 inches, but certainly in a river, I keep them close together. And then I put my weight right here at the junction of the 5 and 6x, and I'll put my strike indicator, which is right here, which I position 1 to 1.5 times the depth of the water, or what I consider to be the depth of the water, from the strike indicator to the weight, not to the bottom fly, the weight, because that weight will get the fly down uh, to the bottom, and then the hydraulics of the water will lift the pupa and the larva, if I'm fishing those up, or two pupas up into to the proper depth. Hopefully, the trout will be at the lower, towards the bottom feeding. And so that's the way that I set up. And this is Brian Yamuchi on the San Juan, where we were fishing down there, and he caught a lot of fish. Okay, this is it's a nice little rainbow that I caught, and this is after if you were watching my tying demonstration, I tied my crystal chironomid, which I usually tie from a 10 around to a 16, a 10 at the beginning of the season, 16 at the end. And the guy called me up. Some him, he goes, "You Rick Falcones?" And I said, "Yeah, yes, sir, I am." He says, "Well, I'm up here on the Arkansas River, and my friend's catching fish, and I want to know what fly he's using." I said, "Sir, I don't know." He said, "Well, you should know, it's your fly." And I said, "Well, what fly is this?" "It's a crystal chironomid." And I was flabbergasted because I designed that fly for still waters. They said, "You're fishing the river," and we're just killing them. And so he says, "Can you show me how to tie?" And I said, do you have a computer with you?" And he says, "Yeah." And I said, "I'll send you all the tying instructions." And so I sent the tying instructions so he could tie this fly. But I caught this fish on a little chironomid that I usually use in a lake. So I just want to show that picture. Okay, then another way that I like to rig up too is using this friend of mine who's a guide up in Winter Park where I was a ski instructor, Cindy. I don't know if you know Jeff or not, since you're a ski instructor. Oh, okay. But what he would do is that he would tie on his dropper fly by tying a length of the material here, usually a clinch knot, above the fly. And so what you could do is you could tighten it down. You could slide this thing up and down the line. So if you needed to switch flies, especially if you wanted to switch off the top fly here, all you'd have to do is just slide that down, flip that off, retie it on, so you wouldn't have to retry with the same rig over and over again. This is how you do it. So it's a real good method. I use that for everything when I'm fishing on lakes or fishing streams. I use the same kind of a rig. Yes, yes, it is. My friend Brian. For stillwater rigs, this is where I'll oftentimes, if I'm fishing in a straight line, bringing the flies towards me, I will tie off the fly off the bend of the hook. And so many of you are used to that kind of configuration. So it's not all the time that I want to use the bend of the hook. In this instance, I will. If I'm presenting a fly in a river, and I wanted to have the different type of rig set so I get a more successful drill. These are some places to catch fish. I'm sure that you guys know where to catch fish. I still have trouble catching fish, so I have to refer to this little map I drew. Okay, where the hell are those fish? And what I drew this for is kind of an illustration for my books, where people find fish. It's amazing where some people don't know where to fish. You know, they get to the water and they step in and they're not quite sure. So hopefully this drawing will help them in some areas where the trout would be. Strike indicators. I like using strike indicators. At first I did because I said, well, hell, these are just bobbers. And I didn't know to understand function of the strike indicators. But I use strike indicators a lot for fishing in rivers. Uh, Not a lot, but quite a bit of the time. And fishing in lakes, especially if I'm doing a vertical presentation of the flies, I use a strike indicator so I could do a drop shot or fish vertical straight up and down. So there are all kinds of strike indicators out there. The ones that I've kind of liked lately are the oils type that you unscrew, and they have a little screw that you can put the line through and tighten it up. Well, I really like that because it's easy to switch up the strike indicator. When I'm fishing rivers, every time I move, I reevaluate from using strike indicator where it's going to go because the water with changes. So I never set up a static rig. I'm always changing as the water conditions change. So I wanted to that so that oils really works well. I find that these pulsar type strike indicators, I don't like to use them because you put them on, then you can't get the darn things off. And then when you do, it's a residue, and I don't like them. So I gave them to one of my friends to fish. And he likes using those for still water. Okay, preparation when you go. Don't rush. Look around. Take time to see if there's any insects or birds coming down to the surface of the water. If there's anything rising, if you can see any movement of fish, don't just jump into the water. Fish. Always just take a little bit of time and observe your environment to see if there's anything that might be an indicator to you that where the fish might be. I think it's really important to use, you can read the rest, use proper etiquette and to give the respect people where they're fishing. I know some friends of mine who will come, see somebody's fishing a run that they like, they'll come right up and stand right on top of the person and fishing to force them out. What I have done in the past is that my friend will bring me up to a run that we're fishing or someone fishing, and I will pretend that I'm a special needs person. And I know some people might say, well, that's really weird of you, but that's what my career is. I dedicated my life to working with disabled kids. And I was a special ed teacher for the majority of my teaching career and an art teacher. So, um, so what I would do is I'd have them they'd bring me up to near where these people are fishing. They say, okay, Rick, you're going to fish right here. And I'd turn and pretend like I was going to cast them in the trees. He said, no. They grabbed me and they turned me and put me out towards the water. And they said, you fish here. And I don't eat the fish this time when you catch them. Okay, just to let them go. And if you have any questions, just ask those guys right there. They're happy because we're going to go upstream and fish. And those guys are going. So sometimes you can get them to move out of the way that way. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Some more fish. I really like to catch fish that size, but most of mine are much smaller. But those are nice fish. And there's some presentation techniques. I won't go into this fairly quickly because most of you know this. It's more fish pictures. Side fishing. I love the side fish if I have the opportunity. But my eyesight's getting so bad nowadays, I can't necessarily see the fish unless the lighting condition is fun. But when I get a chance to see fish feeding, like in the San Juan, sometimes it's so clear. You could see the fish and then you can present your fly to those fish. So I just try to stay away from the fish. I try to wear neutral clothing so I can blend in with the background. Um, and oftentimes when I'm sight fishing fish, I'll use a strike indicator, not because I want to detect the take of the fish, but I know the distance between the strike indicator and my flies, and I can judge when I cast that fish by the strike indicator where those flies might be. And then what I do is once I do that, I'm looking at the fish and seeing what they do. When they talk about the wing, the fish opens its mouth, flash, might turn their head, or might move up and move to the side. And that happens eventually I love it. And then oftentimes there'll be a fish when it's making like flies. And the strike indicator never indicated that it been intercepted. So I use the strike indicator more as a placement for flies. And then I constantly uh, changing the depth because of the in my rig because of the depth of the water and speed of the water. I will try to cast upstream from the fish if I can. Um, One thing that I do that is different than a lot of people do is using a strike indicator and I'll fish directly upstream and I do the antithesis of what is supposed to be a general thing. I'll put a strike indicator on the purple lens and I'll cast directly upstream where I think the fish will be. And that means that the fly line, the strike indicator, the flies and everything are going to come over the fish sometimes, but what I have found is that if I keep my rod tip low and I watch that strike indicator, I can oftentimes pick up a fish that way. Or sometimes I'll do a curve cast, a positive or negative curve cast to put a little bend in the fly using a strike indicator. But don't think that you can't fish directly above a fish. Sometimes the fish will mate. And so that's worked for me. This is the San Juan River. I stick Nicky. Where I used to fish when I was fishing corn, which sometimes I'll fish corn every once in a while for carp and fly right there fun. But that's where I learned how to fish. So learning this new Euro style and this stick Nicky just came natural because that's the way I fish. I didn't know any bit. And most of my fish, my favorite fish are I stick in fishermen, and then I fell in love with the South Platte and Deckers. And that's where I saw my first fly fisherman. That's where I learned how to fly fish. And that was the predominant style back in the late 50s and 60s was high stick and feed. Go back. The rod tip is held high and lowered at the end of the drift. It, the idea is to get that fly bounce off the line. That's what Euro fishing is. You're getting that fly to bounce off. You're dragging the fly down. You're not doing a natural drift. You're dragging that fly towards you, and it's a fun way to fish. Straight line nymphing. This is kind of the technique I was telling you about, except this one I'm not using a strike indicator. Position myself, looking upstream, across upstream, and no strike indicator, put the rod tip down so that the water like this, stripping the line like this, and I could feel fly pitching on the bottom. And when a fish takes, I can oftentimes feel that bait, and I'll set the hook. And so that's what I call straight line nymphing, where I'm just fishing straight up stream. Another little fish I caught. Again, counter to the drift method. So I'm in a guide for a bossy shot, Brook Will, outstanding fisherman. The goose take, when I'm doing the goose take, what I'm doing is sometimes I can fishing and I'll see fish come up in the water column and then go back down. I'll go, if I see stuff, I'll wait till I see the fish come back up. So oftentimes what I do is I'll cast a breath of fish, do a stack land, look along the ground, flies coming down and getting close to where the fish are. I will lift the rod tip up, having the flies come up from the bottom or the top. And if they're towards the water column, sometimes that fish will take the fly. So that's why we call it the induced take. I've tried to induce them to take a fly that's that I've spotted in the upper reaches of the water column. Extended drift. I think this is one thing that I'm certain guilty of, that sometimes I should let the fly drift just a little bit further down. And there's a technique called the licensing lift. And that's where you lower your rocket and you allow the fly to travel downstream a little bit more. Sometimes there'll be a trout following that fly. And then if you don't allow it to extend down and you go to cast, you're going to lose that fish. But sometimes it's good enough to have that fish fall down, you extend, and then you slowly start to raise your rocket, and not only advance the fish to bait. So extended drift is a technique that you should definitely use. This is a girl, I took a picture, I gave her some flies, and she's, oh, you're catching a lot of fish with flies you're using. And if you're ever around me and you want some flies, I'm the guy to come. I've had so many flies in my life that I had quite a few flies. I'm shy of what Phil carries in this vest. Right? But when I was 7 years old, I went to a very famous fly fisherman at the time. His name was Jim Poor. And Jim Poor Emersall. And he started Emersall, which was the first major fly shop in Colorado. In fact, the first time I saw Houston, he was at Emersall. We got to go to their 70th um, anniversary. And because we went to Jim Poor when he was still in the basement of a motel, I showed him my flies as a 7-year-old kid. And he came up there and said, Mr. Poor, would you look at my flies and tell me what you think? And he said, these are good. These are good. You need to practice. Some of the kids may be put off by that. I thought he was saying, man, you really need to practice. And so a week after that, I started trying 3 flies a day. And I've been trying 3 flies a day for 70 years. I don't miss. I was doing all my queries at night, in the morning, I would try my 3 flies because I wanted to keep it my, sorry about that. And I still did it. And I was encouraged, I encouraged around people to practice 3 flies. Easy got never go good. When I instruct someone to 3 flies like my buddy Mike over here, when he first came to me, he was like this. This is, can I help you? He said, I want to know 5 fish. I want to know 5 flies. So I said, there was 2 in my house and I teach her 5 flies. And now he's a phenomenal fly tyer, but he tells nearly every day and catches fish. It's unbelievable. And so I believe practice makes perfect. And I would tell my students and my fly since if you don't practice, you'll never get good at this. If you just put the signs, no, we'll do it a little bit later. You'll never get good. I believe in trying every single day. Still water fishing. Um, 3 to 5 feet under verticals, CCTU's boat high, it drifts and can draw. So a lot of you guys know these techniques, but I'll go over them more briefly for you. Okay, 3 to 5 feet under. A lot of times when I get to a lake, and I'm not sure what's happening, I can't see any activities. I'll start by fishing my primary, usually problems underneath the surface at 3 to 5 feet. Sometimes I'll use a strike indicator. Sometimes I'll just use a floating line, a grease line, cast it out. 99% of the time now, my fly fishing in still waters, I use an intermediate sinking line that sinks real slow. And even if I'm fishing dry flies, what I do is I'll extend the lead around such a dry fly by the kind of fly line sinks down, that fly is floated quite a bit of time, and I can usually pick up a fish, or if the fish is going to take, I can do that. Because if I were to take another fly reel out there, I would drop it in the water. But when we teach out at 13 3 rods and my phone. So I don't want to take any extra stuff out there because I have a tendency to lose it. And so I usually fish a multi-rig fly. Uh, most I'll fish is generally 3. If you know my friend Phil, he fishes 12 flies at a time in still water, and when he brings it up, it looks like a Christmas tree there, but he managed to catch a fish that way sometimes. Yes. Okay, another technique I like to do is a dropper loop. And this is when I'm fishing chronids or fishing anything with a fly pattern that I want to fish at a 90-degree angle to my rig. I'll use a dropper loop, and you can look up a dropper loop on how to try that. So once I've made the dropper loop, you can see that I cut a piece of one filament. And this little technique that I'm showing in this illustration, the technique I came up with where I do an overhand knot on the end of the leader and leave it plug in, put it through the dropper loop, do another overhand knot and bring it through. And then knot, when you pull it tight, will not allow the line to come undone. And so it's a quick way of changing the line. And I've got some pretty large fish and it hasn't come undone. And then at the end, if your leg getting too short, you grab your pliers, and stuff, and just grab that tag in, pull it, and the whole thing comes out. So it's a real quick way of changing the flies. Okay, this is another one using the dropper lip and cutting the dropper lip and the branching of the fly. I don't like to have my fly the blade distance maybe 3 to 5 inches away from the line leader. Only because sometimes if it's longer, I think it gets spindled around. But I want it to when I'm fishing vertical so that it extends out, and so that the fish will be able to see it and take the flat. Dropper rig or a drop shot rig, fishing vertical. It'll hold at the bottom that way, we'll bring it down. And one of the things I wondering to do is not put a knot at the end of that with the line. That's because especially if I'm fishing in a river and I'm drop shotting it, if I should get with the line caught in at the bottom, I can just pull it and sink will come off, slide off, and I don't have to run my flies. So I like using this rig a lot in fishing rivers and for vertical fly fishing. This is another little fish I caught on the on North Carolina buttes. Pretty fun. Sinking teeth, simply pressing out, let it sink down, and tease it flat. I can move a little bit and then tease the fly a little bit. A lot of times I keep my rod tip on at the surface of the water. I'll lift the rod up and lift it down like this. When it goes, it brings the flies up and then low set it down. And also brings on a firm, fish will not the fly. This is a friend of mine, Jim Rose, fishing 9 Mile Reservoir, which is in Wyoming, is a private lake. But he is gracious enough to let me go up and fish and caught some nice fish. Vertical boogie. This is another technique that we use all the time on fishing vertical. I use a strike indicator. Most my flies out, flies out, one so high. Taking my rod tip right up the line, jerk a couple of times, stop. Let the water still black. When my rod tip down and do a slow hand over hand figure out retrieve. And by God, sometimes that is a nice technique of a thought I've had a lot of good luck with this. And not just with ornaments, not just with midges. Flies, studs, elevated slams, as I said, flies that looks that you're fishing still water. Right at the bottom, consider using a slip strike indicator. Slip strike indicator is a indicator that has a peg that's hollow. What you can do is you can put your water through it, you have to put it on first up your road. And then there's a little peg and you can grab your rotary peg and stick it back in the hole. What it does is that you can fish various depths like, or for instance, Lake John, in September or October. Sometimes you can do some really great scud fishing, but the fish are 25 feet down. Or if you have a static strike indicator and you try to reel the line up, the line will stop at the strike indicator. It can't go any further. And there are many times that I was doing that until I figured this out. I have to run up the bank, get out of my boat, run up the bank, go down, skin my knee and stuff like that. The strike indicator, what it does is when you used to six person, you strike, pull out and the strike indicator will slide all the way down the line. And so it's a slip strike indicator. So it's another good indicator to use when you're fishing still water and fishing that's greater than the length of your fly rod. But drift just like anywhere else. Um, Fishing still water, I like to fish calibrated, calibrated dry flies, and I like to fish damselflies, rich Floretsky's damselflies. It's a killer pattern for this technique, especially fishing up at North Carolina. It's in the water and I hear this dun 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 dun. I look over, there's this big fish cruising along the top, so I'll throw the damsel, Rich's damsel, the land on the water. And then Rich says, sometimes it's put a little bit of urge just before the fish gets there. I think it's struggling to get out of the water and hold on. There's probably some vicious things. Back in those days, I fished two flies of calibratus, bar done dry, and Rich's dapple fly dry. It's a fish. It's really great. But sinking draw, again, that's not on the fly line at the same time. If you're using a floating line, use extra long leader. If you're using an intermediate line, you don't have to put as much leader down. And again, you're allowing the fly to sink down to the bottom, then drawing it up, letting it drift back down. But sometimes we'll kick, real slow, and fish it will put a finger in our line. Like this. If you get about 4 legs to line in, creates enough tension that if you just jiggle your fly line like this, you move the fly a little bit, then lift it up and down. I'm going to try anything. Move them sideways, right behind you. I'll try anything to try to catch a fish. But that sinking draw is an effective way of fishing. Surface film. A lot of times when I'm fishing, if I see the fish rise, uh, I will that's my midge out there, but I can't see it. So a lot of because a lot of times press people. I can tell 32 how I can't even see the damn hook. But, but I cut it down to 26 quite often for the center on. And I use magnifying glasses. I have a big magnifying lens that I use. You know, magnifies it kind of flies on. With the deep, deeper than small. We're in Colorado, except for maybe some of the pale waters. But it's a little larger, but generally I find pale waters you gotta fish small flies. Um, Larger flies don't necessarily always work. I think you should be creative. I'm not a believer that you have to follow the recipe. Use a recipe as a like Cindy did. She said, look at this fly I just came up with. And she showed me, and she just used up different foods. That's what fly tying about. But I think one of the last things you should do is it's probably, when I put myself in the back, it's probably your bright information because there's not that much literature out there that has um, bright money pages in there. And I specifically tried to do a book. Model questions I just wanted to show like the different type of materials that have come about, synthetics and things like that, pressure patterns, even things like the rice patterns. Which Brodsky is a little nice. You're seeing little mice that guys with the bucking form and rabbit or fur mice or cooler patterns. There is a video, it's called Zoom In, I think. It's about fishing mice patterns in Alaska. Look that up. It'll just get you on fire about fishing mice. Um, that's about all I have. that if I could share with you. Do any of you have any questions? I think that you're like to ask.